Welcome. If you are joining me right now, you are here for a short introduction on what is mindfulness. Few disclaimers. This is as far as what is mindfulness. In a lot of ways, I do not feel qualified, or in some ways, that it's even sort of my right to talk about this stuff. But I have been practicing for a really long time. I've been learning a lot. I've been making lots of mistakes and failing a lot and growing and scaling back and editing and omitting and adding back in. And it's just going to keep happening as long as I do this work, as long as I'm paying attention to this work, as long as I'm paying attention. And that's mindfulness in a nutshell. You can click off. But this is what is mindfulness in a nutshell, through my lens, right, that I'm using, through the way I was trained, and a lot of what I know about mindfulness was taught to me via mindfulness-based stress reduction. So it was taught sort of as less a quality of being, or even like necessarily a specific type of meditation or any sort of spirituality. In fact, most of what I know or have learned about mindfulness and applying mindfulness is pretty secularized. Okay, so in a lot of ways, I'm super grateful for that. Makes it much more accessible and palatable, and there is more of a sort of equal playing ground where we create more space. But in other ways, it does. It still has that sort of aftertaste of appropriation and ripping people off. But these skills are so life-changing and necessary. In a lot of ways, I feel like not sharing them would do folks more harm, more of a disservice. So that's my spiel. As you come back to this, if you do, you can fast forward through that part if you like. So anyways, what is mindfulness according to Ashley right now while we're doing this in this moment? Mindfulness, as defined by John Kabat-Zinn, is paying attention to what's happening while it's happening without judgment. It is non-judgmental, present moment awareness. Okay? There's all sorts of ways that you can be mindful. But from what I've learned, mindfulness comes from the word, I believe it's a Pali word, it's shmrti. And that translates, at least according to the guy that taught me this part, as to remember. So mindfulness in a lot of ways, at least base what it means as far as this practice goes, is just remembering to remember, which is a lot of what makes life beautiful and challenging and devastating and fragile and perfect and hard, and the list goes on and on. But we have to remember. This remembering gets colored through whatever lenses we're using, or we're used to, or we're borrowing, or however many lenses we have on. There are certain qualities or attitudes of mindfulness that I discuss in another video. I just want to kind of touch on the two sort of, I want to say channels, but I want to say two ways to be mindful. You have your formal meditation and your informal meditation, okay? As you explore, if you choose to, the rest of the MBSR videos, or just MBSR in general, mindfulness-based stress reduction, you'll find that I and the rest of the folks in the community, we touch on different aspects of both. We practice both. We encourage, we think both are necessary. Here's kind of an example a couple of examples of both. Formal mindfulness meditation is sitting in silence and using an object of um, concentration and meditating on it, whether that's your breath or a mantra or the flame of a candle or silence. Um, but it's that sitting with something in particular. This can also be a lot like a body scan, just paying attention to sensations where you're being directed to pay attention to them specifically. Other mindfulness meditations can be specifically your vipassana, your pranayama work. If you are just focusing on a breath exercise, and that's what you're doing, that is a formal mindfulness meditation. Then there's your informal mindfulness, which is truly what we aim to do most days, most moments. And it can really kind of be conjured and utilized in just about every moment. Right now, I'm mindful I just started touching my foot. I'm mindful that my heels are kind of chilly and a little clammy, at least this one, the other one too. I'm mindful of the sounds around me. I'm mindful of sort of an uncomfortable sensation in my low back. I'm mindful of sounds in the room I'm in. I'm mindful of what's going on in this moment. You can do this to sort of enhance or just practice mindfulness in everyday exercises, activities. You can be mindful of how you eat. This is why sometimes tea drinking, it's a whole meditation. So if you drop into a bit of mindfulness meditation in the midst of snacking, notice what that's like. Washing your hair, taking the garbage out to the curb, playing on the floor with your child or your grandkid, or in a classroom with your students. It's bringing mindfulness right into the picture, or at least remembering that mindfulness can be tapped into, okay, in any such informal thing. So yeah, when we get together and we practice these things, because it is sort of under the tab of mindfulness-based stress reduction, see if you can't be a little more mindful and maybe step out of trying to use it specifically as an intervention. See if you can just be mindful to practice what mindfulness feels like. If you can just be mindful to practice what doing things that you do already feel like when you're being mindful of them. The two sort of inform the other. There is sort of an interdependence there. And again, we touch on that in the attitudes or the qualities of mindfulness. But yeah, so you're welcome to explore either. A really great place to go in the beginning and truly to revisit anytime you can remember. And I still, to this day, will every once in a while, if I know I need to, I will kind of plug it into my phone and set little reminders or little timers or alarms. And they'll go off and they'll remind me to do this work. And one way to do that is just simply to practice the stop exercise, which is just a good old acronym. It's just S is stop. Whatever I'm doing, like I did just a second ago, was a great little example in real time of practicing stop. You stop, you take a breath. Really doesn't matter what kind of breath, as long as you can feel it, right? Maybe you can hear it, sense it in some capacity. Then you O is observe. So I observe what's going on me, in me, around me, right? And then I just proceed, okay? In the beginning, or for as long as you like, or for as frequently as you like, keep going back to stop, okay? It's It's helpful on its own, but it's also going to help you both with your formal and your informal mindfulness practice. And that's all I'll say on Mindfulness 101 for this video. Thank you, and see you soon.